Episode 79, Power, Deception, and Prophetic Blunders. Welcome to the Hidden and Distorted History of the Church series, where we will be looking at the historical aspects of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormons. In this series, I will try and inform those unaware of the true facts of Mormon history. Recap. Last week, Brigham Young continued reshaping law, theology, and society all at once. He delivered the infamous Adam God sermon, and the Church publicly revealed plural marriage. Meanwhile, Lucy Mack Smith's memoir was published by the Church, but not in its original form. This week, we meet Jesse Hartley, a thorn in Brigham Young's side. Ground finally breaks on the Salt Lake Temple, while Parley P. Pratt issues a new edition of his book, still with no mention of the first vision. Young delivers a botched geology lesson, Orson Pratt challenges the Adam God doctrine, and the Kinderhook Plates are exposed as fakes. All this and much more in an episode you won't want to miss. Part 1. The Jesse Hartley Saga. Jesse W. Hartley, sometimes listed as J. W. Hartley, was a young, non-Mormon attorney who arrived in Utah Territory in September 1853. Not a member of the Church, he quickly earned a reputation as one of the few lawyers in Salt Lake City willing to represent non-Mormons or dissenters in the territorial courts. Courts at the time dominated almost entirely by Latter-day Saint officials. His presence immediately drew suspicion from Brigham Young's administration and from many church members. Outsiders stepping into the legal field frequently found themselves in conflict with the Mormon-run courts, and Hartley was no exception. One of his first clients was David Hull, a non-Mormon businessman or trader described in contemporary accounts as a Gentile merchant. While the exact details of Hull's case remain unclear, it involved a civil dispute that required legal representation, a dispute Hartley took seriously despite the risks. On September 24, 1853, Hull died suddenly of poisoning in Salt Lake City. Newspapers outside Utah, particularly in Missouri and California, reported the death as suspicious, linking it to Hartley's defense of Hull and the broader tension between non-Mormon residents and Mormon leadership. Surviving notices confirmed the poisoning was real, yet local authorities brought no one to trial, and Hull's death went effectively unpunished, leaving questions hanging over the territory. The very next day, September 25th, Hartley himself was accused by Mormon authorities of stealing a horse and money. The timing was glaring. Hartley had arrived only weeks earlier, was already embroiled in a contentious legal case, and had quickly made enemies among those who controlled Utah's courts. There is no evidence that Hartley was ever formally convicted, but the accusation alone, and the rapid way it spread, damaged his reputation and marked him as a target in Salt Lake. Alarmed by Hull's death and the mounting legal threats, Hartley drafted a letter on September 26, 1853 to Jefferson Davis, then U.S. Secretary of War. In the letter, he warned of a coming storm brewing in the territory and urged federal intervention in Utah. The letter never reached Washington. It was intercepted while still in Utah Valley and ultimately ended up in the hands of Brigham Young. Hartley's attempt to communicate directly with federal authorities highlights both the extreme isolation and the sense of danger felt by non-Mormon outsiders navigating the territory's legal and social systems. These incidents, the horse theft accusation and the intercepted letter, illustrate the climate of intimidation and suspicion in mid-19th century Utah. Outsiders like Hartley had to operate under constant scrutiny, where legal disputes could quickly become life-threatening, and accusations alone could destroy reputations. On September 30, 1853, a territorial judge released Hartley, finding insufficient cause to detain him. He soon accepted a teaching position near Spanish Fork, yet the following day, October 1st, the Deseret News published a statement accusing him of theft, keeping Hartley under public attack and sustaining tension between him and church authorities. Jesse W. Hartley's story is far from over. He would continue to challenge the church's power, and his experiences reflect the broader dangers faced by non-Mormons in a territory tightly controlled by Brigham Young and his administration. I plan to dedicate a full episode to Jesse W. Hartley in the near future. Stay tuned. Part 2. Faith versus Fact. Construction on the Salt Lake Temple began in 1853, marking a monumental milestone for the Latter-day Saints in Utah Territory. This was the third temple the church had embarked upon, a symbol of both faith and the extraordinary ambition of Brigham Young's leadership. In 1854, Parley P. Pratt released the fourth edition of his book, A Voice of Warning. Despite updates and revisions under Pratt's own supervision, he was still alive and actively overseeing the publication. The book still made no mention of Joseph Smith's first vision. The omission is glaring. Why would a foundational experience of Mormonism, central to Smith's claims of divine authority, be entirely absent from a text intended to warn and instruct believers? That same year, Brigham Young delivered a lecture that would go down in history for its sheer absurdity. He taught that the earth is a living creature and breathes as much as you and I do, claiming that the tides moved not because of the moon, but because of the earth itself breathing. These statements, recorded in the Journal of Discourses, were presented as fact in his public sermons, likely delivered in the Salt Lake Tabernacle. This was not science. This was speculation dressed as revelation. Yet the saints accepted it, revealing a community willing to trust divine authority over observable reality. If a prophet could be so obviously, demonstrably wrong about something anyone could see, the motion of the tides, then it forces a critical question. How reliable could his teachings be on matters unseen, spiritual, or historical? Later in 1854, doctrinal tension came to a head when Orson Pratt, a prominent apostle and theologian, openly opposed Brigham Young's Adam-God doctrine, which asserted that Adam was God the Father. Pratt expressed his disagreement both privately and through his publication The Seer. Young responded swiftly and harshly, threatening to excommunicate Pratt for allegedly teaching false doctrine. Faced with the threat, Pratt relented publicly, issuing a confession that affirmed Young's doctrine as officially the doctrine of the church. This confrontation highlights the brutal reality of early church leadership. Questioning prevailing teachings, even as an apostle, carried personal risk. The episode exposes not only Young's control over doctrine, but also the climate of fear and conformity enforced to maintain his theological authority. Faith and fact collided, and those who questioned the narrative risked everything. Part 3. Hoaxes and Heresy. In 1855, W.P. Harris, one of the men behind the infamous Kinderhook Plates hoax, confessed that the artifacts were a fraud. This confession confirmed what many had long suspected. The plates, which briefly captivated Latter-day Saint leaders and the public alike, were completely fabricated. The hoax had stirred excitement, speculation, and even cautious investigation, but Harris's admission laid the matter to rest. The Kinderhook Plates, once treated with a mix of curiosity and reverence, were definitively exposed as a deliberate deception, revealing how easily both church authorities and believers could be misled. For more detail on the Kinderhook Plates, see my video episode H, the Kinderhook Plates. That same year, Brigham Young made a claim that would shock both followers and historians. He stated publicly that Joseph Smith had not been visited by God or Jesus in 1820, but by an angel of the Lord. This contradicted every account Smith left of the vision, all of which described the appearance of God the Father and Jesus Christ. Young's reinterpretation shows that even the highest-ranking leaders in the church were willing to rewrite foundational events decades after they occurred, reshaping history to suit their authority and theological goals. By the 1850s, Brigham Young had consolidated near-total control over the LDS Church. Reinterpreting key events like the first vision allowed him to assert doctrinal authority, reshape Smith's experiences to support the hierarchy he led, and cement his own influence over the church's narrative. Presenting the vision as an angelic visit aligned with Young's evolving theology, emphasizing angels, priesthood authority, and his personal cosmological interpretations, the environment of mid-1850s Utah, politically isolated, socially insular, and tightly controlled, enabled Young to reframe history and doctrine at will, reinforcing cohesion among believers and silencing dissenting interpretations. By downplaying or altering aspects of Joseph Smith's revelations that didn't fit his administrative or doctrinal objectives, Young demonstrated how history could be manipulated, even at the highest levels of church leadership. Part 4. A Code and a Plot. In 1855, scholars achieved a monumental breakthrough. They successfully deciphered ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs using the Rosetta Stone, unlocking the ability to read Egyptian inscriptions for the first time in centuries. This discovery didn't just advance scholarship, it opened the field of Egyptology and gave historians and archaeologists the tools to study Egypt's history, religion, and culture with unprecedented accuracy. In hindsight, this breakthrough would prove crucial, as it ultimately exposed the Book of Abraham as a fraud, revealing the extent to which claims of ancient authority could be manipulated. For more detail, see my video episode J, the Book of Abraham. Later that year, on November 22, 1855, Brigham Young took a decisive step that reveals both ambition and nepotism. He privately ordained his 11-year-old son, John Willard Young, as an apostle. The ordination was not symbolic, it was strategic. By elevating his child at such a young age, Brigham Young sought to engineer the succession of church leadership, increasing the likelihood that John Willard would become the senior apostle and ultimately lead the LDS Church after his father's death. This move was a calculated attempt to consolidate familial power, effectively undermining decades of existing leadership while cementing Young's influence over the church's future. In 1855, history, ambition, and manipulation intersected. Scholars uncovered ancient truths abroad, while in Utah, a prophet reshaped authority at home. One revealed what was real, the other demonstrated how power could rewrite legacy. I hope you learned something new. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and follow for more no-fluff, ex-Mormon content that cuts through the faith-promoting fog. Please watch for future videos, and thank you so kindly for watching. This is the Ex-Mormon Informant signing off for the day.